Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Do you guys hear me well? Yeah, okay, perfect. Then let's start recording.
Recording in progress.
Okay. Amazing. I'm really excited today because today we have such an amazing energy that is carrying us with such beautiful, but also such profound, incredible life lessons. The name of today's energy is Tu Ahpu. Tuarpu. And I really can't wait to tell you guys all about it. But as you know, we always start with making a little invocation or setting intentions with the cacao. So if you guys would like to take a few moments right now to do so, this is the time. And then we're going to get started. So I'm going to remove the microphone and do this. Perfect. Okay. Wait. One sec. Okay, I think that's okay. All right. Can you guys still hear me well? Just because I moved the mic again. Okay, perfect. Wait, I'm sorry. I feel like I did something weird to the camera. I moved it and now it's like not the right way. All right, I think that's better. Okay, perfect. So let's talk a little bit about the energy of Ahpu. Ahpu is such a peculiar one. The Nahual of Ahpu is very unique because, we've been exploring Nahuales such as animals, such as, like for example, Tihash was the obsidian stone. So objects, sacred things, elements. Ahpu, the Nahual of Ahpu is actually the human being. And I always thought that's such a profound and interesting thing. But in addition to that, in addition to the human being, Ahpu is also represented by the one who's the expert in how to use the blowgun. And I don't know if you've ever seen a blowgun, but it's a very ancient weapon. And in addition to that, Ahpu is also the one that is connected to the sun and to the sunlight. And so there's so many incredible lessons that Ahpu teaches us. What I always found, and I always mentioned this during the challenge, what I always found so interesting about Ahpu is that it represents the sun, it represents the light, it represents the highest manifestation of light there is, as a matter of fact. But Ahpu is the one energy that teaches us all about the darkness. So today, finally, we're going to get into a lot of people's favorite topic. Honestly, I'm not going to lie, it's also my favorite topic. Let's see. That's the chat. I'm writing it. Okay. Shivalva. Um, so it's, I say it's a lot of people's favorite topic because it's such a profound lesson that it's been left to us by, the ancient Maya, this lesson of Shivalva, the world, the upper world, the underworld duality, the darkness, how to master ourselves truly, fully. And I think it's so beautiful. So I'm going to tell you the story of Shivalva today, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. So what is Shivalva? In the Maya tradition, it is believed that we're affected by three levels of existence. the upper world, the world, and the underworld. We as human beings are supposed to live in the world, the very center between the upper world and the underworld. These two are also represented by two sacred concepts, which is known as the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth. There's a connection to, for example, the upper world referring to the cosmos, to the sky, to all of the astronomical events and the connection to the skies. Um, and the underworld referring to everything that's in the soil under the earth, the cave systems, like everything that's under the earth. So there's all of this reference to these three, different planes of existence that affect us, right? So the cosmic and the telluric, the energy of the sky and the energies of the earth. And this is really profound because in addition to manifesting themselves physically, the upper world and the underworld also represent a very profound metaphor for life and existence. So the upper world represents the light, and the underworld, which is known in the Maya tradition as Xibalba, represents the darkness. Together, they represent the duality. And as we stand in the center between the two, it is believed that the perfect place for us human beings to be is in the center between the dualities, in the center between the light and the darkness. That refers to not only the external light and darkness, but our own internal light and darkness. So I came up with a really simple example on how to explain this, and then I'm going to get into like the actual deeper stories told in the oral tradition and in the Popol Vuh. So, but a few challenges ago, in trying to explain what the upper world and the underworld represent, the best way I came up with it is think about, for example, the upper world, right? The upper world is represented by the light. When is the light around? As we all know, the light's around during the day. And when you think about what the day represents in our lives, you can think about a lot of different things. So, what do we do, for example, during the day? During the day, we are often doing a lot of different things. We're pretty busy, right? We go to work, we cook, we interact with other people, we run errands, we exercise, we socialize, you know, work on our goals, on our projects, work on all kinds of things. And so during the day, oftentimes we're moving a lot, we're running around, we're doing all kinds of activities and things. And the day in the Maya tradition is really profound and really sacred because it brings with it the opportunity to do a lot of the things that we've been talking about. So to do stuff like nohtaras, like action, to take care of ourselves, to exercise, to take care of our relationships with our community, to work on our goals, to, even just do things as simple as just having fun, for example, and just having nice days as well, and just also enjoying life a little bit. So the day brings with it the opportunity to be productive, to create the life that we want, to work on the things that we want, such as a good career, a good relationship, good relationships with our families, a good relationship with ourselves, the goals that you might have. So the day brings with it, in that sense, a lot of different opportunities. And so the upper world is represented by the day and by the light. The underworld, or Xibalba, is represented by the darkness. And when is the darkness around? Well, obviously during the night. And what happens during the night? In contrast to the day, the night is actually very different because there's no more running around. There's no more running errands. There's no more socializing, no more interacting with other people, no more doing a bunch of different things that we have to get done every single day. During the night, all of that is like over. And it's time for us to be at home, to start winding down, to maybe start going to bed, go to sleep, relax, reset, and prepare for the next day. So what happens during the night is we don't do a lot of things anymore. And because we don't do a lot of things anymore, it is said that our five senses are the least active during the night. Because, for example, there's not much to see, not much to hear, not much to taste, touch, smell. There's no much to interact with the outside world. Now, in modern times, obviously, we have fought really hard against the night because we created all of this technology. So the night is full of activity nowadays in the sense of we're using often our computers, watching movies on the phone, scrolling around social media, just like utilizing all of these distractions during the night. But a couple hundred years ago, the night was not like that at all. The night was actually really dark, really silent, very little access to light, access to sound, basically just absolute stillness, right? And so you can think about it in terms of like that moment when you're lying in bed, once you've turned off all the lights, once you've turned off your phone, and there's that moment when you're just lying there in the darkness and there's no sounds, there's absolute silence, there's nothing happening. That's when your five senses are the least active. What do your five senses do? They connect you to the outside world, to the world around you. They allow you to interact with the people, the things, the world around you. So what happens during the night when the five senses are least active is when you least interact with the world around you. And what exists beyond the world around you, what exists beyond your five senses, what's the only thing that is there if you're sitting there in the silence, in the stillness, in the darkness, and the only thing that exists for you in that moment is yourself, right? And a lot of people get really freaked out by that moment. And so what's really interesting is, that sometimes when we're in the face of ourselves, depending on where you're at in your journey, that can be either really comfortable or really uncomfortable. So for some people, that moment of being alone at night, relaxing, ready to go to bed, it's actually very soothing and very nice. It's like finally a little moment with me and myself, and I'm glad, and I can now relax and stop thinking about everything and just rest and even enjoy that I have nothing to do. But for other people, that's the moment when all the stress, all the anxiety, all the, worrying thoughts, all that's, bad stuff starts coming up. Like who's had, for example, all those sleepless nights, where you start worrying and thinking and your problems seem 10 times bigger at night than they do during the day as well, and you're like, oh my God. And you can't sleep because you're thinking about all the stuff that you need to do and the problems that you currently have that you have not resolved. Or, when you start looking at yourself and like basically problems come up, right? If you have problems in that moment, what will come up is problems, right? So the teaching of the silence and of the darkness, which is what Xibalba is, the silence and the darkness, is that the silence and the darkness is not bad at all. It simply is the one part of existence that allows us to be alone with ourselves. It's the part of existence that shows you you. And if you're okay with you, then that's not a scary thought at all. Then that's fine. It's even probably a happy moment. But if you're not okay with yourself, then maybe that is a scary thought. Then maybe that's like a very uncomfortable moment, the darkness and the silence. And so Xibalba is considered to be the great teacher that shows us ourselves, is the teacher that puts that big mirror in front of us and forces us to take a good look at ourselves because there's nothing to distract us right now. So in the oral text of the Maya Quiche people, and the Popol Vuh encapsulates within it a lot of the Maya oral tradition that's been passed down from generation to generation for thousands of years. And in it, we can find two parts, the mythical part and the historic part, which is the mythical part refers to all of the stories of the oral tradition that have all of these metaphors within themselves that we can learn from. so much about life, about psychology, about relationships, about ourselves. And then the second part of the Popol Vuh is historic because the Popol Vuh finishes when the Spanish arrive, and they describe in the last pages of the Popol Vuh like what happens when the invasion begins and all of that. But I guess I'll talk to you about like the first 3, 4 chapters of the Popol Vuh, perhaps. So the Popol Vuh, just for history, for those of you who want to read it, it's kind of hard to read it. It's kind of frustrating, actually, because what happened is, as I told you yesterday, I think, a lot of the codices, the books, the texts and the scriptures that the Mayans had in here in Mesoamerica were burnt by the invaders when they arrived in this part of the world. And so there was like this horrible week where for 1 week there was one fire and they burned the majority of the books that the Spanish could find. They burnt them in that fire. So we're left with very little codices, with very little books, with very little references that were able to survive the invasion. Amongst them is what is unfortunately nowadays known as the Dresden Codex, the Madrid Codex. They're called like that because they're named right now in the modern day times after the cities where they're currently located. But all of those codices, all of those books leave us with a lot of really important and cool information that gives us a glimpse of life in the ancient times. Some of them describe calendar systems, such as like the Dresden Codex, for example, has like information on the transit of Venus. I hope you can't hear my dogs. I don't know what's wrong with them, but they've been howling all morning. They never do that, and now they're just howling for like 1 hour straight. But anyways, so basically, all of these books contain important information. Now, the Popol Vuh is potentially the most famous book right now and one of the most studied books, but it has a long history. So the Popol Vuh, we don't actually have the original manuscript. Nobody knows what's up with the original manuscript. Nobody even knows if there was one, how it might have looked like. There's a lot of speculation. It probably looked like a codice, like this accordion style codice. Um, Nobody would know how old it is, like what time does it date back to. Long story short, there was this guy who came with the Spanish. He was a Franciscan priest, a Catholic priest, and he first lived near my hometown, actually. I live like in the Cachiquel area. And so he learned to speak Cachiquel. Then he moved to Quiche, and he learned to speak Quiche. And once he was there in Chichicastenango, he got a hold of the Popol Vuh. The name of this guy was Fray Francisco Jimenez. And he asked, can I have the Popol Vuh so that I can translate it to Spanish? And so what he did is he took the Popol Vuh, which was written not like in the alphabet that we use nowadays, but probably like ancient Mayan glyphs. And I think the theory is that he probably even asked for help from the people who were holding the Popol Vuh to help translate it. Then he tried writing it in Quiche, but like with the modern alphabet that we use nowadays. And then he tried translating it to Spanish. What's the problem? The problem is that it is super believed that what he did is he tried to Christianize it as much as he could, because he thought this would be a great way to kind of support converting the Maya people to Catholicism. He was like, if I take their own sacred stories and mix them like with Bible style stories, it'll be like an easier transition for them from what they currently believe in into Catholicism. So, for example, when he talked about Xibalbá, and I just told you the concept of Xibalbá, the underworld is more like about silence, stillness, taking a look at your inner world, your emotions. He called it hell instead, you know? When he talked about the energies of Xibalbá, he was like, those are demons. And the upper world was like heaven or the sky. He added a flood into the book, similar to the one that happened in the Bible. he referred to a lot of things in a very Catholic way. And that's the most ancient version we have because the original, nobody knows what happened to it. So the oldest one we have is the one that Fray Francisco Jimenez translated and wrote. What happened is this one got lost. It's crazy. It has a crazy story. So this one got lost for a long time. It disappeared. Like the original Popol Vuh disappeared, and then the Fray Francisco Jimenez version also disappeared. But a really, really rich guy bought it. Now we know the real story of what happened. So a really rich guy who liked, I forgot his name right now, who liked collecting, you know, valuable books and manuscripts and codices and stuff like that, bought the Popol Vuh and put it in his collection. He brought it to Europe and put it in his collection of a library of all these like super fancy books. Then he died, and as he died, he said he was gonna inherit some of his books to his family, but also donate some of his collection to museums, to libraries, as he passed away. And amongst the collection was the Popol Vuh. And so what happened is the Popol Vuh ended up in the Newberry Library in Chicago, but nobody noticed that it was there. What happened is the Popol Vuh got stuck to another book by accident, like totally randomly. It just got stuck to another book, and you couldn't see the Popol Vuh was in it. It was in it, literally. And nobody like opened this other book. So it was just, everybody just said, oh, well, the Popol Vuh is like lost forever, I suppose. Then super randomly, a Guatemalan guy is at the Newberry Library in Chicago studying something for his like, I don't know if his thesis, or I don't even know what he was doing. And he needed the other book, not the Popol Vuh, but literally the other book where the Popol Vuh was hidden in. And because this guy was super highly educated, also in the Maya tradition, which is also super random that he's studying the other book, and all of a sudden he turns the page, and all of a sudden he's like, the book changes, and he's like, what is this? And he starts revising it, and he's like, oh my God, it's the Popol Vuh. So he finds the Popol Vuh, which is currently still in Chicago, by the way, still in the Newberry Library, but now a little more to the side and protected, and all that stuff. But now that they discovered they had it by accident. And it was groundbreaking because it helped people to be able to study at least the manuscript that Jimenez had. And even though he had Catholicized it and changed it so much, there was still the site in Quiche, which still gives us a glimpse to what the original manuscript might have been. What happened is people started to translate it and do their own versions of it. But a lot of the Catholic concepts that he put in it still made it to most of the translations. So in English, I can tell you honestly, there's no good version of the Popol Vuh. Unfortunately, if you want to read it in English, the best one is Dennis Tedlock's, but is because it's the best amongst the not so great ones. So it still doesn't capture the oral tradition. In Spanish, the very best one is the one by Sam Colop. Sam Colop was a Quiche man, and he took the one from Jimenez, but he studied it for years, and he consulted with the Quiche nation and with spiritual leaders, his Quiche historians, and tried to write them what he thought could be the most accurate translation that still represents the real Maya oral tradition. However, things such as the word gods still made it into Sam Colop's book. Certain Catholics concepts still made it into Sam Colop's book because that's how Jimenez wrote it, even in Quiche. That's why we don't have the perfect version of the Popol Vuh that truly reflects the ancient oral tradition. So if you're ever reading it and you're asking yourself, oh, what gods or what demons or like what, the Mayans believed in this, oftentimes, no, that's not the case. It's just that the Popol Vuh was mistranslated. Okay, now that's the history. So the Popol Vuh, however, is still a super valuable book because it's still, loads of parts of it still give us a big glimpse to this ancient history that's also passed on in the same way as in the oral tradition. And the first 3 chapters of the Popol Vuh teach us 3 or 4, I'm not sure, 3 or 4 chapters of the Popol Vuh teach us a lot about the story of Xibalbá. So the first time ever we see Xibalbá being mentioned, we meet the super important characters of the Maya tradition, and their names are Hunahpu and Xbalamque. And Hunahpu and Xbalamque are known famously as the hero twins of the Popol Vuh, or of the Mayan story. Hunahpu and Xbalamque are great teachers for this day. Hunahpu, by the way, I don't know if you already noticed that today's Ahpu, one of the teachers of Xibalbá is Hunahpu. Hun means one, Ahpu means Ahpu. Yeah. You're learning in 1 hour what Ahpu means right now. Basically, the idea is that this story of these 2 hero twins is this story that teaches us a lot of it gives us a lot of information on what human beings, what the Mayan ancestors left us as advice for what human beings should do when we're in the face of the darkness, in the form of a story and a lot of beautiful metaphors. So I'm gonna do this in 2 episodes, let's say, because I'm gonna keep talking about this during Ish, because 1 hour is just not enough to tell you the story of Xibalbá. So I divided into Ahpu and Ish. So I'm not gonna finish today, but I'm gonna try to get through as much as I can. So Ahpu, Hunahpu and Xbalamque, the first time they show up in the Popol Vuh is in this intertwined kind of with the story of the different humanities. What do I mean by that? So in the Maya tradition, in the Popol Vuh, we can read the story of creation according to the Maya. And in the story of creation, it is believed that before us came a couple of other humanities, but those humanities like went extinct or disappeared because their existence was too unsustainable. So this current humanity is known as the humanity of corn. And you've probably maybe heard the Mayans refer to themselves as people of corn. Corn is very sacred. Yesterday, I already described the system of agriculture of corn. So now you know its physical nutritional value, and it also has a very profound historical value because it is the basis for building communities. But in addition to that, corn is very metaphoric and spiritually relevant because corn, the 4 colors of corn represent the different colors that humanity has. So corn has 4 colors: yellow, red, white, and black. And I said them in the wrong order. I'm going to say them in the right order, actually. Red, black, white, and yellow. I think I said them in the right order. I'm tired. I just woke up. But anyways, so basically, the idea is that the yellow is not just one tonality of yellow. The red is not just one tonality of red. The black is not just one tonality of black, and the white is not just one tonality of white. If you look at the native corn cobs, you will see that it has all tonalities of blacks and purples and like almost like browns. The red also has like different tonalities of reds, brownish colors, yellow as well, and white as well. So in this way, those 4 colors of corn represent all of the skin tonalities that all of the people from all of the races of humanity have. So it represents all of the different human beings. Together, they also represent the 4 corners of the earth. It represents the wisdom of all of the different races and cultures in humanity. It represents the 4 elements, the 4 cardinal points. It represents, all of the directions. So you have like, the east, the west, the north, and the south. You have the fire, the earth, the air, and the water. So red, black, white, and yellow. So east, west, north, south. Yeah. So anyway, so basically, and then in the center, you always have green and blue, but that doesn't refer to corn. That refers to the heart of the sky and the heart of the earth. In any Mayan ceremony, you're going to see the 4 colors of corn represented by candles and flowers and other objects. And then in the center, you're always going to see green and blue, which represents green, the heart of the earth, and blue, the heart of the sky. So it's like a metaphor. All of those colors and all of those objects are metaphors that represent all of us human beings and these profound concepts of the heart of the sky, the heart of the earth. There's a whole story to corn. We're probably going to keep discussing it throughout the challenge. But anyways, we are called the humanity of corn. We're the people of corn. But before us came a few different humanities. The first one was the people of mud, or the people of clay. I'm not going to even talk about them. I feel like they're kind of irrelevant. Nobody ever gives them enough attention. They were just kind of dumb and useless. So there was not much to them. They just disappeared because they were just kind of like not fully great, like they just didn't work as human beings, and that was it, Then there was like the people of wood. Okay, this one's super important. That's the one I want to talk to you guys about. Why wood? Not that literally they were made out of wood in the same way that we're not literally made out of corn, but corn represents traits that we have as human beings. And for that humanity, wood represented traits that their humanity had. And their humanity should be a big warning to our current modern day humanity. The reason why is the story of the people of wood goes as follows. So the people of wood were hard like wood, they were inflexible like wood is. It is said that when you looked at their faces, because they were so stiff like wood, they had almost no facial expression, and they weren't able to express emotion. So they were like very serious, very hard, very stiff people. The people of wood, it is said that when the creation created them, you know, were much more successful than the people of mud, because the people of mud were kind of dumb. As I said, they had no brains. The people of wood were an improvement in that sense. They were very intelligent. They definitely had brains. They definitely had intelligence. They were able to use knowledge. They were able to learn, develop themselves scientifically. They were very knowledgeable people, and yeah, had a lot of intelligence. That being said, they had one massive flaw. They didn't have a heart. It is said that they didn't have a spirit. They lacked heart. They lacked emotion. They lacked spirit. And their biggest flaw, they lacked the ability to practice gratitude. And so, because of that, the people of wood, with their big brains and their big intelligence and their hard stiffness, went ahead and started reproducing themselves. And it is said that they populated the entire planet. And all of a sudden, as they started developing their societies, the people of wood started to utilize the resources of the earth to build their societies bigger and bigger and more and more. But the problem is because they lacked heart, because they lacked empathy, because they lacked spirit, and because they lacked gratitude, they did it recklessly. It is said in the Popol Vuh, they forgot about the creation. The creation was really worried, because the creation said, the people of wood forgot about us, all of the creators, which refers to everything in existence, the trees, the nature, the animals, the heart of the sky, the heart of the earth, all of the ancestors and elders who are like the fathers of creation, Sakol, Bitol, Alom, Caholom, Tepeo, Cucumats. So they were every part of creation was like, no, the people of wood forgot to be grateful to the rest of creation. They forgot us, and now because of it, they're destroying all of the creation. They started to act reckless. They started cutting down all of the trees that they needed, using all of the water that they needed. They treated the animals horribly, exploited the animals, exploited nature, exploited all of the resources. One day it got so bad that there was a meeting, and all of the creation got together. All of the energies of creation, all of the creators got together, and they were like, what are we going to do about the people of wood? Because they're destroying everything. But the problem is they're so self-destructive, because they know if they destroy everything, they too are going to die. They're also going to self-destruct by doing this. So what are we going to do? And then the creation came to the conclusion, we have to destroy the people of wood because anyway, they're going to destroy everything and themselves anyway. So we might as well save ourselves and destroy the people of wood. So the dogs came and started biting their meat and chewing the people of wood. And like even the utensils, the pots and pans of their houses started like hitting them because everything was made out of nature in the ancient times. So like adobe houses started to crumble so that they couldn't protect themselves. Like the wrath of nature just started to like come towards the people of wood and they all died, right? And so that's how they ended. And so then all of the humanity so far had failed. But then there was this prediction from the creation that soon will come the children born in clarity, the people of corn, and they're going to be perfect because they will have a brain, but they will also have a heart. They'll also have a spirit and gratitude. They're not going to be as hard as wood. They're going to be strong enough like corn, but also soft enough like corn as well, that they can be strong and hard but soft like corn, so they will have spirit, they'll have gratitude. And you can even see in the story of creation that we were given cacao to activate our spirit so that we don't forget about our hearts and stuff like that. So it's a beautiful story, also a really big warning, because like I feel like we're accidentally turning ourselves more and more similar into the people of wood every single day. So maybe we should contemplate that and see this 1,000-year-old warning of what will happen if we don't stop ourselves. But anyways, so basically, the first time we meet Hunahpuan Shbalamke is in the story of this really annoying guy. His name is Bukuv Kakish. And Bukuv Kakish is a character of the Popol Vuh that's around during the time of the people of wood. Bukuv means 7. Number 7 is very significant, by the way. It shows up throughout all of the story. And interestingly enough, we see Bukuv Keme, Bukuv Kakish, a lot of the characters of Xibalbá have number 7 next to them. 7 is like a crossroads in the sense that it can bring a lot of harmony and peace once Xibalbá is overcome, but it's a number that like shows us like a little bit of the darkness of Xibalbá. Anyways, so Bukuv Kakish means Macau, that beautiful bird with like the colorful feathers, the red, blue, yellow feathers. So there's this guy called 7 Macau or Bukub Kakish, and he's around during the time of the humanity of wood. He has a family, super dysfunctional family. His children are Cabracan, Sipacana. They're super annoying. They're always creating natural disasters and earthquakes and destroying the forests and playing with the trees and the water and stuff like that without also recklessly, similarly to the people of wood. His wife is also not a great lady, so pretty dysfunctional family they have going. And so anyways, Bukov Kakish is this Macau, and Macaus are very colorful. And his teeth are made out of this, as it's described in the Popol Vuh, his teeth are made out of green gems. His eyes too are made out of this beautiful, valuable green gems. And he's really cocky, this Macau, this bird. He's like, oh, look at me. I'm so colorful. Look at my teeth. They're made out of gems. Look at my eyes. Oh my God, I'm amazing. I'm the best of all, the best there is. He's so cocky, so self-centered, this Macau has such a big ego that eventually we are already learning in this part of the Popol Vuh about Ukushkach and also Ukush Uleo, which means heart of the sky and heart of the earth, which is already considered to be like sacred, like the cosmos, the earth, like the big things that give us life, right? And then all of a sudden he gets so cocky, he's like, you know what? I think I'm actually even better than Ukushkach. I think I'm bigger than Ukushuleo. Like Ukushkach, Ukushuleo, they got nothing on me. I'm bigger than this guy. I'm bigger than the earth. Anyways, he's so cocky. But because the people of wood, as we just learned, are a little lost, in life, and their society is not doing so great. They're just destroying everything. They forgot about gratitude and being thankful to the creation and living in harmony with themselves and nature and all of that stuff. So the humanity of wood is a little lost. this guy becomes basically like a guru for them. He's like going around and preaching at the humanity of wood. He's like, hey, humanity of wood, it's me, Bukuvka Kish. Like, don't pay attention to the sky. Don't pay attention to the earth. Pay attention to me. I'm shinier than the sky. I'm shinier than the earth. I'm better. I'm bigger. Forget about the sky. Forget about the earth. I'm better. I'm better than that. Pay attention to me. Give your praise to me instead. And so basically, which just this story alone already has so many. We could unpack it for 1 hour straight, just this one story alone. But anyways, he's like, these hero twins look at this guy and they're super worried. They're like these elders, the hero twins. They're like, no, the humanity of wood is already destroying the planet. They're already not doing so great. We can't have this guy confuse them even more. How severe. He's making them think that one person can be better than the rest of people. He's making them think that one person is more important than nature, is more important than the sky, is more important than the animals and all of the other things around. He's making them think that they need him. They need to follow him if they want to be happy. And que look at this and they're like, no, we have to stop this guy. The humanity of what is bad enough as it is. We can't do this. This is not this. I'm saying it in my own words, by the way. This is not how it's written in the Popol Vuh, obviously, but you get the point. So then he's like, they make this plan. They go and Hunahpu, is like Bukowka Kish, there's this tree that he likes. He goes and eats the fruit from the tree. So he likes this tree. And is like, okay, today we're going to go and destroy this guy because we have to kill him. We have to get rid of him. He can't exist anymore. He's messing everything up. So on the path to destroying him, they run into this old elderly couple and they tell them, oh, grandmother, grandfather, can you guys help us? Because you're old, you're so wise. Can you help us? We need to destroy Bukov Kakish. And the elderly couple says, well, we're dentists. And they say, yeah, come with us. Maybe we can trick Bukov Kakish. So Hunahpu with his blowgun, because that's his weapon, stands under the tree, looks at Bukov Kakish, aims the blowgun at Bukov Kakish, and he fires. The blowgun hits him in the beak because he's a bird. And Wukukaki is like, oh, my beak, somebody attacked me, they hurt my beak. He goes home, complains to his wife. He's sitting there crying. He's like, my beak hurt so much, my teeth are falling out, they hurt so much. And then this old couple, but it's all a plan, as you know, walks by and they are like, oh, bird, are you okay? Do you need help? By the way, it looks like your mouth is in pain. Did you know we're dentists? We could help you. And he's like, you're a dentist? Oh my God, amazing. How perfect timing, because somebody, I don't know who, just attacked me. And now my mouth and my teeth hurt so much. Can you fix that? So they say, yes, we're going to help you. But it's a trick, as you know. So they go ahead. They start treating him, and what they do is they pull out every single one of the gems from his teeth and replace them with white corn. What a profound metaphor that they're replaced with white corn, because as you know, corn represents the humility, the clarity. Now, it represents the humanity of corn, which are the ones who have more gratitude, more appreciation for nature, all that stuff. So then he gets up, he looks at himself, and he's like, oh my God. He's like, where all my gems are gone. He's like, now I have corn instead of gems for teeth. He's like, what have you done? You've ruined me. Anyway, the guy has such a big ego. All of his self-value for him is in his gems. And so as soon as he loses his gems, they don't even have to murder the guy. They're like, oh my God, we don't even have to murder this guy. He loses his confidence so much, he just stops bothering the humanity of wood, because he's like, now I'm not great anymore because I lost my gems. Now I'm not powerful anymore because I lost my gems. Now I am worthless because now I have corn that's worth nothing instead of gems. So it's the first warning we see in the Popol Vuh of the story of Xibalbá about, like the dangers of destroying nature, of not having gratitude, of putting our self-value in like our physical goods and our money and our material objects rather than on who we are as human beings is the first warning we see of thinking that we can be better or worse than other people, thinking that we need a guru or a teacher. My dad always said it, nobody needs a teacher. You are your own teacher. All you need is yourself. You can learn by admiring and observing others and learn from their path. But he always said he hated when people called them a teacher because the teacher is you. You are your own teacher. And so Bukuvka Kish was confusing the humanity of what, like, if you want to be better, you need me. Like, you can only do it if I help you, you know? And so it's like this warning of all of these different things. And we meet them again. And what's beautiful about the Popol Vuh is it gives us two parts to the story. We start getting to know the family tree of the Maya tradition. So it's really weird, okay? The parents Hunafuan Balamke, the hero twins, have three parents, one mom and two dads. It's a weird constellation, but and I still don't really fully get how exactly it came to be that way. But anyways, their parents are Hun Hunahpu, Bukuv Hunahpu, and the famous princess Ishkik, right? Yeah, right? Yeah. Yeah. So anyways, so before then we like, the story jumps, is not chronological, it jumps to the past, to the present, to the future all the time. So then fast forward to another point of the story where the story jumps backwards and we go to a time before Hunahpu and Shbalamkeo were born. And we get to hear the story of their parents, Hun Hunahpu and Bukuv Hunahpu. Hun Hunahpu and Bukuv Hunahpu are the children of grandmother Ishmukane, I think. So there's a lot of names to remember, but yes, I'm pretty sure. So then one day, Hun Hunahpu and Bukuv Hunahpu are playing the ancient Mayan bowl game. So they're out in the fields playing the bowl game. They're having fun, playing the ball, running around, just doing their thing, just enjoying sports. And so they basically, there comes another metaphor, the story of they're referred to now as the Lords of Xibalba. I don't know if that would be their original name, but yeah, the Lords of Xibalba. So the Lords of Xibalba, who physically, if you would speak about Xibalba, it would be under the earth, as I mentioned, start to listen and hear this noise. They're like, what's this noise up there? And is the noise of the bull falling off the ground? Is the noise of running and jumping as they're playing the ancient Mayan bowl game? And they're like, how dare they, say the Lords of Xibalba, interrupt our peace? We are the great and the mighty Lords of Xibalba. Like, how can they dare to make noise to bother us? So they're like, no, we can't have people do that and bother us and annoy us. We're gonna call those guys and we're gonna dare them to another game of bowl game, but down here in Xibalba. And the trick is, if they lose, we're gonna murder them. So then they send these owls to call Hun Hunahpu and Bukov Hunahpu. They're like, the Lords of Xibalba are calling you down to Xibalba. They go tell their mom. Grandmother Ishmukane starts crying. She's like, guys, how could you do this? You're gonna die in Xibalba. Oh my God, the Lords are gonna kill you. Anyways, they go down to Xibalba. And then we encounter for the first time in this story, the story of the houses and trials of Xibalba. Each house of Xibalba is a metaphor for all of the parts of us internally, like as human beings, all of the parts of us that are not doing so well, the parts of us that are kind of similar to Bukukakish, the ego, the greed, the lack of gratitude, the jealousy, like all those things that keep us down in Shivalva, right? In the darkness. So every house is a metaphor for facing all of our fears, all of our traumas, all of the difficult things that we have to overcome if we want to come out to the upper world. So the story is just full of metaphors, right? And so Hunhunahpu and Bukuhunahpu come down to Xibalbá, and they start facing trial after trial after trial. They first get introduced to all of the lords of Xibalbá. Each one, like Hunkeme, Bukubkeme, like all of them represents also different parts of human beings that are bad. One of them represents like conflict. Another one represents illness. Another one represents, creating disagreements on purpose, like all those different, different things. Like Chivalva is just a big metaphor for all the stuff that's not so great about human beings, that part of our duality. So, okay, they go down there. One of the first thing that happens, I'm skipping some parts of the story, by the way, but they go down there, and one of the first things that happens is the lords of Xibalbá are like, "Welcome to Xibalbá, sit down." And there's this bench, and it's basically on fire. It's super hot, and they can see that. And then they're like, "Oh, but it's hot." And they're like, "Hot? No, we would never hurt you. Sit down. We're being polite. You should be polite too. Sit down because we're telling you, you're our guest, sit down." And even though they can visually see that they're going to get hurt by sitting down, in order to not be impolite, in order to please the lords of Xibalbá, they still sit down. And of course, lo and behold, they burn themselves really hard. So we start seeing all of these metaphors of like, if somebody who doesn't have your best interest at heart tells you, go there, do this, and you say, okay, I'll do it, and then something bad happens. I mean, that's kind of your fault. I don't know. So anyway, so basically they start going through all of the stories. They fail very early on in Xibalbá. They get to the trial where they get some tobacco given to them and a piece of ocote, which is like from the pine tree, a specific wood is really flammable, something like that. And they tell them, okay, your first trial is this. We're gonna play a ball game tomorrow, but you have to first go through this trial. If you don't, we're gonna kill you before we even get to play a ball game. So here's a tobacco, here's an ocote. Both of them are lit. You're gonna sleep here tonight in the house that is dark, and you have to keep it lit all night long. And if by morning we come and it has already consumed itself, we're gonna kill you. So basically, their reaction to this trial is they're like just freaking out, They're like, oh my God, please, 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 please don't turn off, don't turn off, don't turn off. And that's it. Obviously, they consume themselves. Morning comes, Lords of Xibalbá come, Tabaco and Ocote are gone. They're like, you guys failed the first trial. And then they get murdered in Xibalbá. Anyways, the head of Hunhunahpu somehow ends up in a morro tree, which morro tree is where jicaras come from. So if any of you guys have jicaras with you, they're a big part of the story of Xibalbá. I see some people lifting them up. They're jicaras. And that's why medicine is drunk from jicaras to remind us of the story of Xibalbá. That's why cacao or other medicine is considered to be good to drink it from jicara, because it reminds you of the head of Hunhunahpu and what not to do when you're in Xibalbá. And then Princess Ishkik comes. She really wants to go see this mythical head of Hunhunahpu. She comes near the morro tree. He spits on her hand. She becomes pregnant with the hero twins. I'm mega summarizing the story right now, by the way. You can read it full in the Popol book, but I have not a lot of time, so I really have to fast forward through a lot of details. The hero twins are born. And one day, the grandmother Ishmukane, because they live with their grandma too, had hid all of the stuff for playing ball game because she remembered because her children played ball game, they got called down to Xibalbá, so that's what killed them. So she hid it really well. But one day, Hunahpu and Xpalamque, the hero twins, find the ball and they find the uniform and the attire you wear for playing ball game. And they're like, oh, how much fun. Let's go play ball game. And history repeats itself in the next generation. And then they go and play. The Lords of Xibalbá listen to this again. They're like, someone else dared be noisy and annoy us. Same thing. Go call them owls. We're gonna dare them to a game of a bowl game. You know what I mean? Down here in Xibalbá, and it's Hunahpu and Xpalamque, the hero twins. The story becomes really interesting because we have now
the people who went down to Xibalbá, their parents, and they failed. And now we have the story of the guys who succeeded and overcame all the trials of Xibalbá. So Popol Vuh even makes sure of showing us the two parts of ourselves, what happens when we give up and what happens when we fight, right? Like how to lose and how to win in life. And so basically, they go through the exact same trials, but they're much smarter. The guys are like, sit in that hot, fiery bench. And Hunahpuan Shpalamke are like, no, we have the right to say no. We can say no if we want to, and we're not going to do that because we see it's going to hurt us. So why would we do something that would hurt us just because you're telling us to? So the word no is important and boundary there. We're not going to be doing that, you know? Then, you know, they go to the house of the darkness. They're also given the tabaco. They're also given the ocote, but they know better than to just cry because they're in a difficult situation and just cross their fingers and hope for the best and pray that nothing bad happens. They're like, let's be astute. We know why we're here. We need to get out of Xibalbá. So let's have directionality. Let's be very mindful and conscious. Let's not allow the fact that we're in a bad situation freak us out. So come on, let's turn off the tobacco, let's turn off the ocote and think creatively. And what they come up with is, how about we invoke the fireflies? And how about we call one of our friends the Macao, not the same Macao, another Macao, and they ask the Macao to give them some of its feathers, as they're fiery red and yellow. They attach the feathers to the ocote, and they ask the firefly, "Could you place yourself on the tobacco?" And as fireflies light themselves, it looks a little bit like fire, and so they are like, perfect. It looks like it's still lit. Morning comes, Lords of Xibalbá come in, and they're like, whoa, you succeeded? Like, how did you do it? They're like, oh, how did they do it? The ocote is still lit, the tabaco is still lit. That makes no sense. Nobody ever overcomes this. So they knew how to think logically, critically, to not do what we said during CAT, which is just freak out and squirm around and be like, oh no, desperation, desperation. But instead, they were like, okay, we're in this situation. Let's be still, like Kat showed us, you know, let's think, how can we get out of the difficult, bad situation? You know, and so basically, oh, and somebody just said something interesting in the chat. Isn't that cheating though, right? And one thing that because we have in the Mind Wisdom Project team, we have we had for a couple of years a book club. And so the whole team got together and we read the Popol Vuh and then we discussed it. And one thing that came up a lot was sometimes the hero twins do bad things. They lie, they cheat, they do things that are considered to be bad. But in this way, the story is so profound. They teach us about our own duality and how we all have darkness and light. So what's interesting here is comes another part of the story. I'm sorry, I'm making today's session a little bit longer. Give me 10 extra minutes because I'm just really into this story. So what's really interesting is Hun Hunahpuan Bukov Hunahpu came from grandmother Ishmukane. She was from the light. She was from the upper world. They had not one bit of darkness inside of themselves. The hero twins, however, their parents, came from the light, but their mom Ishkik is from Xibalbá. She's from the darkness. So they have a very interesting family lineage because they come from both the light and the darkness. They have both light and darkness, like all human beings do, inside of themselves. So because of the darkness in their line, in their ancestry, the experience of the darkness that they've had in their life, because if you see their story, they're rejected by their grandmother first. Their step siblings are not so nice to them. They're always getting treated bad. They're like having their own set of problems and issues in their life. So they go through a lot of stuff themselves, which can be considered darkness. So the hero twins, in that sense, are better at defeating the darkness because they know the darkness. Hun Hunahpu and Vukuv Hunahpu, the parents, were too innocent. So the lords of Xibalbá are like, sit on that bench that will literally burn you. And they're like, well, we wouldn't want to be impolite, right? Let's just trust them. If they say it's going to be fine, it's going to be fine. But Hunahpu and Xbalamque, they know better than that already. They're like, nah, we know the darkness. We know that you're trying to trick us, and we're not going to fall for that. And they're like, if you're gonna kill us, like if this is what you guys are doing, you're bad people. If you're gonna kill us, if we like are in the face of this task that is literally impossible to win, yeah, we're gonna ask, well, we're gonna do a lot of different things, good and bad things. We're gonna ask for help because we know we can't do this alone. So in that sense, they teach us like something really positive, but also we're gonna trick you back, right? And a lot of the times Hunahpu and Xbalamque act a lot like tricksters, and that's the way in which they defeat Xibalbá. And so it teaches us. And so here's the lesson. All kinds of things happen, right? Along the way, they go through different kinds of trials. Sometimes they're about to fail. There's a point in the story where Hunahpu gets decapitated and loses his head, which physically he loses his head, but it's a metaphor for how when we're in Xibalbá, sometimes we lose our head and we don't think clearly anymore in the face of like adversity and problems in life. We also, like Hunahpu, start freaking out and lose our heads. And in that moment, Xbalamque holds his head and she's like, okay, Hunahpu lost his head. I'll carry his head and I'm going to keep going and I'm going to save him in this part of the story. And then later in the story, she reattaches his head into his body. And then he's like, okay, the value of having people in your life, like what we said in Kawok, a good community, right? Who can help you when you too lose your head as well, right? So there's a million little metaphors in this story. You have no idea. You can study this story for days and weeks and months and years, and you're going to keep finding more and more metaphors that are incorporated into this beautiful story. But the long story short is they get out of Xibalbá. Hunahpu becomes the sun, Xbalamque becomes the moon, and everything in the story of the Mayans always becomes at some point, some people become the stars, certain set of stars, some guys go to the Pleiades, they become the sun and the moon, so that every time we look up at the sky, we can remember all of these stories is the beautiful part of that, right? But Hunahpu becomes the biggest source of light because he's the sun, right? The sun is the biggest source of light. It shines so bright. As a matter of fact, it has light not only for itself. It gives light to so many different planets. It gives life to all of creation, all of human beings, all the plants, all the animals. And in this way, we learn that they do two things. Before they become the sun and the moon, they go back to Xibalbá and they trick the lords of Xibalbá one more time and they do this amazing thing. So they trick the lords of Xibalbá. I'm not going to tell you how because we are definitely out of time, but it's a good story too. You can read it in the Popol Vuh how they trick the lords of Xibalbá. But at some point, they basically own the lords of Xibalbá at this point of the story because they have the power to now kill the lords of Xibalbá. So then the tables turn. The lords of Xibalbá are like, no, please, 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 please. We're sorry. We're so sorry. And they're like, now we're going to reveal to you who we are. Our names are Hunahpu and Xbalamque, and our parents are Hun Hunahpu and Vukuv Hunahpu, and they're buried right here in Xibalbá because they died in the darkness. So now we've come to retrieve their bodies. We want you to give us our parents, their bodies, so that we can bury them up in the light. And in this way, the story even teaches us about like ancestral healing and how when we overcome Xibalbá, we don't only overcome it for ourselves, but we overcome it for the generations that came before us, for the generations that will come after us. It's like they heal their parents by healing themselves, and then they become the light, so they're able to bring light to the future generations, you know? And so is this beautiful story about the light and the darkness and like just how we have light and darkness, how, you know, the fact that they had this dark background because of Ishkik, that their mom came from Xibalbá, and that they had like also their difficult childhood and all of that stuff, you know, was not an impediment for them to overcome Xibalbá. As a matter of fact, they were better at it because they went through the darkness, because they were astute, because they were smart, because they were conscious, because they practice all things that are really good and are able to help each other, but they're also not going to be tricked so easily because they know dark people already. They know what's up in the darkness. They know how the darkness operates. And so in this way, they're able to like look at their own darkness as a tool to be more smart, more creative, more willing, more driven to get out of the darkness. They access their own darkness as a tool. And that's what a spiritual leader told me once. He said, you know, it was so many years ago. And a spiritual leader told me one time, Sulvay, I think the problem of the Western world is that people are so confused. And I've noticed when talking to them that they have their duality backwards. And I was like, what do you mean their duality backwards? He said, yeah, duality, don't you see? It's like the sun and the moon, they share the space, the day and the night, they share this space. They're in perfect symbiosis with each other. There's time for the sun, time for the moon, time for the day, time for the night, time for the darkness, time for the light. So in that way, duality is kind of like this, he said. But people in the Western world seem to have their duality like this. And I was like, what do you mean like this? And he said, they put their duality to fight with each other. They put their light to fight with their darkness to fight with their light. And he said, how silly is it to do that? He said, if you don't believe me, just go out at night and look up at the sky. And I was like, what does that mean? And he said, well, what's the only reason you can see the light from the stars? He said, because they have a dark background. If they didn't have a dark background, they wouldn't be able to shine. We wouldn't be able to see them. He said, you can use your darkness to support your light, to make you shine. And instead, sometimes you just go into an internal war of like, oh, the darkness hates the light and light hates the darkness. But in reality, in the Maya tradition, those two things are not bad or good. They just are, and they are natural. That's why we also see duality in nature. They're part of nature. They're part of us because we too are part of nature, and they're there to support each other. We're not supposed to try to get rid of the darkness or pretend the darkness inside of us doesn't exist. What we have to do is we have to face our own darkness, but in the same way that Juan Balamke did it, to utilize it as a tool rather than as a weapon of self-destruction or destruction of others, such as Wukub Kakish, that dumb bird did, with his ego and stuff. Like, he used it badly. Juan Balamke used it to save themselves, to save the generations before them, the generations after them. They struck a deal with the lords of Xibalbá and said, you're not going to bother the people of Corn. Because they don't deserve to be bothered just for the sake of it. The only way you have the right to bother the people of Corn, lords of Xibalbá, and we're the people of Corn, is if they choose to be in the darkness, if they choose to create war, if they choose to have conflict with each other, if they're practicing ingratitude, greed, then maybe it's good for them to learn a lesson, they said, but don't bother the people who are not, doing those things. And so in that way, the story of Xibalbá is a big metaphor that teaches us how we should act in the face of our own darkness. It teaches us consciousness, astuteness, the ability to ask for help, the ability to let ourselves be held by a good community when we lose our heads, the ability to help others who have lost their heads, the ability to also look at our own darkness and think, what can I learn from this? I'm going to use it as a tool so that I don't fall for the same trap again in the future. It's like, I can give you the list of 1,000 things that this story teaches us because there's just too many. So that's why today, I'm so sad. I want to keep telling you for one more hour the whole story. There's so much more to say, but I'll stop myself now. Today, we're drinking cacao with white rose petals. First of all, in the cacao, the white rose petals represent those two colors, right? Like the light and the darkness. So like the light that you can see in the darkness, but also specifically white rose, different colors of petals of roses have different medicinal purposes. It's really hard to find white rose petals. So if you took like pink ones or whatever, that's fine. It's all good. Those also have medicinal benefits as well, but specifically white rose petals are really good in a lot of different things. Firstly, they're used for treating depression, anxiety. They're good against heart palpitations, headaches, colds, inflammation in the body. They're antioxidant, they're antimicrobial, they're antiviral, they're anti-cancer. They have a lot of benefits, but let's focus on, oh, and they're really good if you have period cramps. When you're menstruating, that's a good mix, the rose petals with cacao as well. So, but let's focus on the anxiety and all of that. You know, today is a day, because today is Ahpu. Don't be surprised if today you have to look in the mirror, even though you don't want to. Ahpu are days that bring us, the Shivalva is more present during days that are Ahpu. So basically what Ahpu does is it puts us in a position when we're forced to observe ourselves. It brings the light, it brings the darkness and the silence. And we're also scared of that, but really darkness and silence are not bad. They're natural, they just are. If you're scared of yourself, then maybe, that's why you don't like the darkness so much. But the reality is darkness just gives you the opportunity to look at yourself. So maybe today you're going to go through certain situations where you might get triggered. Maybe today you're going to go through certain difficulties, have difficult conversations, like things might just naturally come up because that's what happens during Ahpu. And if we're not conscious, we might just think, oh my God, am I just having such a bad day? Like, what a horrible day. I just feel bad today. But if we are conscious that today is Ahpu, then we can take it as an opportunity and be like, oh, so this is Shivalva right now showing up. So what can I learn? How can I get out of this house of Shivalva? What can I think about? And what can I remember from the story of Hunahpu and Shbalamke? To help me actually see this situation and think, what can I learn from it? What is it triggering inside of me? And instead of just, like just going deep into the trigger or whatever, asking myself, oh, if this is coming up, it probably means it needs to come out. I need to heal this. I need to work on it. So what can I do to work on this part of me? Why am I so triggered by this? Or why do I feel so bad about this? So that's what this day brings. It sounds scary, but it's not, sometimes I look at it and I'm like, oh, it's a boom. I'm like, what's going to happen today? So naturally it's like, oh my goodness, because it's a difficult day to face sometimes. But if we look at it from like the higher perspective, we shouldn't be like, oh, it's is no, I never pay attention. Sometimes I'm too distracted by like just daily life. How grateful it's giving us the opportunity to take a look at ourselves so that we don't have to keep carrying all that stuff inside of us. It gives us the opportunity to bring them up, to release them, to heal them. So in that sense, even though sometimes that's difficult, today is a really good day as well. So have fun facing Shivalva, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have an awesome rest of your day. And I hope you have a nice day. And goodbye. See you tomorrow. Bye.